there is a very concrete, very strong possibility that the Brazilian government will decide to expel one or more agents of the American government who work in Brazil.
I don't know what happened. I was informed this morning. I think that if there was abuse by the Americans against our officer, we will do the same to their agent in Brazil.
In retaliation for the United States' order to expel a federal police officer from American soil, the Brazilian president announced that he will also expel FBI agents operating in the country. If the measure is actually implemented, it represents a hardening of bilateral relations and could trigger a major diplomatic crisis, putting international cooperation between the two countries at risk. The episode becomes even more serious because the expelled officer was accused of manipulating the U.S. immigration system to try to secure the extradition of Alexandre Ramagem in an attempt to bypass the required formal procedures. This accusation, combined with the tough response from the Brazilian government, creates a complex atmosphere of tension that could strain geopolitical ties between Brasilia and Washington. In this video, we will analyze how this situation may be directly connected to the White House's decision to move up attack operations against the cartels in Brazil. Welcome to Vida no Quartel.
No, there's no discussion. In other words, we want things to happen in the most correct way possible, but we cannot accept this interference, this abuse of authority that some American figures want to exercise over Brazil.
The expulsion of Brazilian Federal Police Commissioner Marcelo Ivo de Carvalho from the United States, where he had been working since 2023 as a federal police liaison officer with ICE in Miami, threatens to put this historic partnership between Brazil and the United States at risk. Vida no Quartel. The measure could compromise mutual trust and make it harder to continue joint operations, especially at a time when international cooperation is considered essential to tackle increasingly sophisticated criminal networks. Vida no Quartel, the Brazilian delegate circumvented the U.S. immigration system to facilitate the extradition of Alexandre Ramagem. It can seriously undermine the credibility of the federal police with its partners. This episode creates room for diplomatic tensions and calls into question the politicization of Brazilian police forces, which are state institutions and not government institutions. Police cooperation between Brazil and the United States is long-standing and formalized through memorandums of understanding that allow Brazilian federal police commissioners to operate in the United States and U.S. federal agents to operate in Brazil. This agreement was designed to enhance the fight against transnational organized crime, strengthening the exchange of information and joint operations. Agencies such as the FBI, DEA, and the Secret Service have maintained an active presence in Brazil for years, including the permanent office of the Secret Service inside the U.S. consulate in São Paulo. Some American journalists believe that the Brazilian president's threat to expel U.S. federal agents could be the spark that accelerates the American military offensive against the cartels on national territory. Within the shield of the Americas offensive.
The United States is sending a message here, a warning to Brazil that they are going to launch an offensive against the PCC and Comando Vermelho.
According to analysts, this move could turn rhetoric into practical action, putting Brazil at the center of an international operation to fight organized crime. In a scenario where political narratives can anticipate strategic decisions, the statement by the Brazilian president could lead Donald Trump to move quickly on the geopolitical chessboard. Analysts point out that the current policy adopted by Donald Trump is centered on demonstrating strength on the international stage, reinforcing the idea that it is more advantageous to have the United States as an ally than as an adversary. The White House has responded firmly to any kind of threat, and gestures considered hostile, such as the threat made by the current Brazilian president, have served as a trigger for significant institutional actions. Another important point to highlight is that the current Brazilian government stated that Police Commissioner Marcelo Ivo was directly involved in the arrest of Alexandre Ramagem in the United States. However, official data indicate that the detention occurred due to documentation issues identified during a routine ICE patrol without any involvement from the Brazilian police commissioner.
And Brazil mentioned cooperation with the United States, saying that ICE would have helped local authorities make the arrest. The fact is that he went to ICE because he had illegal documents. His diplomatic passport was no longer valid and he was immediately arrested. So the question remained, what kind of cooperation is this with ICE, where the local authorities make the arrest, he is sent there, and 2 days later he is released? It was really strange. And then today this order came, the one from the American government, saying that the police commissioner who worked with ICE to make the arrest has to leave the country.
This disagreement exposes an attempt by the current Brazilian government to build a narrative of joint action, which does not correspond to the facts. The insistence on this version ended up increasing friction in bilateral relations, since American authorities accused the Brazilian government of using the episode as a tool for political persecution. This type of narrative conflict undermines the trust between the police institutions of both countries. It can seriously compromise international cooperation, precisely at a time when collaboration is considered essential to confront transnational criminal networks. The expulsion of FBI agents from Brazil would be a real turning point in continental geopolitics, as it would not be related to any failures committed by these American agents on Brazilian soil, but rather as retaliation for a mistake attributed to a Brazilian police chief abroad. Leave your opinion in the comments about who might have advised the Brazilian police chief in the attempt to manipulate the American immigration system. We would like to sincerely thank the channel members who have actively contributed to keeping the daily activities of Vida No Quartel going. Besides believing in the project, you are an essential part of this community, and like all subscribers, you share the dream of seeing a fairer Brazil, free from corruption and violence. You can also support Vida No Quartel's activities through the Pix QR code that's appearing here on the screen. For us, it's an honor to stand shoulder to shoulder with each one of you every day, building together a space of resistance, unity, and hope for a better future. Here at Vida No Quartel, you stay up to date with everything happening in the military world. Leave a like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos that's appearing on your screen. Onward, fighters! See you next time.